Hi, my name's Brent Barrowcliff, and I'm with Freedom Begins here. And I'm here today to talk to you about how to have a conversation with your children about sex. Let me ask you a question. Where did you learn about sex? Most of us, if we're answering truthfully, did not learn it from our parents. We may have learned it at school. We more than likely learned it through peers. We may have learned it at church, but probably not there either. But the reality is, I want to talk to you about why it's vitally important for you to have the conversation about sex with your children. Why is it your responsibility to do that? And I'm going to share some stats with you. And then I'm going to talk to you about how to overcome your fear to have this conversation. And then I'm going to talk to you about how to have this conversation with your children. And again, at the end of this, we have some video content that's on this website that's going to help you as tools to have that conversation or start that conversation with your children. We're really excited about those things too. So let me talk to you about some statistics. The first statistic is only 40% of parents ever have the talk with their children before they're sexually active. So that means there's a lot of us that didn't have that talk. And that's real late. And we need to have a conversation with our children around this issue. You do not want your children to be actively sexually without having this conversation. Remember my point earlier. Where'd you learn about sex? How did you learn about it? Probably wasn't in the best place or with the right person. You have to begin this conversation early. You're going to hear me repeat this. It's not going to be a one-time event, so you're going to have it often because their lives change as they get older. So here's my rule. When you think your kid is at the age of accountability and when they need to have this conversation, back it up about 3 years and start having that conversation. It's much easier to start earlier. If you're like me as a parent and missed that opportunity and didn't take that time until later with your children, that was a missed opportunity. Don't give up yet. Still have that conversation. Only 19% of men ever have conversations with their son around the issue of sex. We don't even have the discussion with our boys. Why not? Well, mainly because we're thinking we learned it from somebody else, so our son will learn it from somebody else. That's not where you want your son to learn it. You want your son to learn the correct terminology, why it's important for him to know this. And you're going to hear at the end of my statistics why this is so important. Why is this vitally important? Why do dads need to have conversations with their sons? 90% of mothers say they've talked to their daughters about sex, but only 51% of these daughters said they heard a talk about sex. So that meant almost half the girls never had the conversation, basically. What they heard was, hey, you know what's going on. Let's talk. We're more worried about our comfort zones as parents than our children. And our children probably want to have this conversation with us. But the most of the time, we want to get done with it. So we circumvent all of the truth around this. We don't really talk to them in the correct terms around this. We just check for what understanding they have, and we think, okay, that's the sex talk. That may have been what happened to you when your parents. I remember my daddy telling me in a car, hey, you know about this? And I knew exactly what he was talking about. And I said, yeah, I know all about that. He said, great. And we went on. That for him was the sex talks. That for me was not the sex talk. You can imagine how that played out in my life as I went on. Not real good. Dads, moms, hear me. You got to have a conversation. You have to have a conversation about this. Why